Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth episode of Fire Alarm Systems 101, and today we will be discussing about the topic the Fire Alarm Control Panel, which is abbreviated as FACP. My name is Shamil and I am working as a fire alarm engineer, and let's begin with the topic right away. So let us first of all discuss what is the Fire Alarm Control Panel. So FACP, which is the short form. So FACP stands for Fire Alarm Control Panel. So you can consider the FACP as the brain of the entire fire alarm system. Okay. Now when I say about fire alarm system, it consists of the FACP, that is Fire Alarm Control Panel, and then it has several devices that is connected back to the FACP. So by several devices, I mean it includes the smoke detectors, the manual pull stations, the sounders, the strobes, the horns, etc. Okay, all these devices will be connected back to the fire alarm control panel. So a fire alarm control panel is basically like a command center. Okay, so let us explore what are the jobs which are performed by the fire alarm command center, fire alarm control panel. Okay, so a fire alarm control panel has three main jobs. Okay, the first one is to monitor. So the fire alarm control panel monitors all the connected devices for signals. Okay, so as I explained in my earlier videos, there is always a constant communication which takes place between the fire alarm control panel and the connected devices. Okay, the second job is to decide. So it is to determine whether whether the signal which is coming from the device, whether it is normal or whether it represents any of the three signals. Now by three signals, there are the common three signals which are there in the fire alarm system include the alarm, supervisory and trouble. So if it is any of the three or if it is normal signal, that has to be determined by the fire alarm control panel. Okay, and the last job is to act. So based on the signal which is being received from the device, the fire alarm control panel has to take an action. So for instance, if it is an alarm signal, the fire alarm signal will initiate an alarm sound by activating the notification appliances. So the notification appliances include the horns, strobes, combined sounder strobe, etc. Now, there could be situations that when an alarm happens, there will be a sequence that needs to be initiated. For example, if there is an alarm in the building, then the HVAC system, okay, that needs to be shut down. The sliding doors needs to be opened. If a kitchen hood suppression system gets activated, then the fire alarm control panel has to monitor whether there is any signal coming from there and then accordingly take action. So to summarize, three jobs for the FSCP include monitor, decide, and act. Okay, and one more point regarding to the last job is that in case if there is a signal coming, then there is an option, there is an additional feature where the signals which is received by the fire alarm control panel can be notified to the monitoring companies. Now we will explore this monitoring companies maybe in the another episode. Okay, we'll be discussing that in detail. Okay, but for now, we will stick to three jobs. That is, one is the monitor, then we have decide, and then we have act. Okay, these are three main jobs of the fire alarm control panel. Now, how does the fire alarm control panel look like? So, as you see in this picture, okay, this is the picture of a fire alarm control panel. It's a normal fire alarm control panel. Okay, so if you remember, we have discussed about the different types of systems between the conventional and the addressable system. There are two types. So this one is an addressable. Sorry, this one is a conventional system. Okay, I'm just showing you an example. So in the normal fire alarm control panel, we have a cabinet. So the cabinet could be either red or gray color. That depends on the manufacturer. Okay. So the cabinet is made of metal, and this is normally mounted on the wall. Okay. So that is the cabinet. The second item is the door. So the door, it could be, it normally contains a glass, okay, or plastic windows so that you can see the displays without opening it. Okay, it has a transparent glass, so in which you can see either the annunciator or the screen, the LCD screen. So that is the door part. And then comes the last item, which is the inside the components, the internal components of the panel. Now, normally the internal components comprise of the main circuit board, which is the motherboard. Then you have the display screen, the LCD screen. Then you have the control buttons, which normally comprise of acknowledge, reset, silence. Then we have the indicator LEDs, which are the power LED, alarm, trouble, just to name a few. So these are typically the items, the components which are present in the fire alarm control panel. Okay, so maybe sometime in the future I will be exploring different fire alarm control panels for different brands. So, okay, because each brand, when it comes to the structure, when it comes to physical nature, everything remains the same. The cabinet, it has a cabinet, has a door, it has a glass screen, everything is there. But when it comes to internal components or internal components, when it comes to the electronics part, there will be a difference in when it comes from each brand. Okay, so sometime in the future, I am planning to do a video for each brand. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. The power supply. Now, in a fire alarm control panel, normally it has two power supplies. Okay, so first one is, we call it as primary, and the second one is secondary. So what is the reason for having these two power supply? Since it is a fire alarm control panel, since the building needs to have a fire alarm control panel that runs 24/7, the power supply for the panel shall never be interrupted. Okay, that is why we are having two supplies. One is the primary power supply, and the second one is the secondary power supply. So let's discuss about the primary power supply. So the fire alarm control panel takes its primary power supply from the building main power, building electrical power. So depending on the region, you are having two types of power supply. Either it could be 240-volt power supply, or it could be 120-volt power supply. Okay, so it depends. It depends on the region. So normally many of the panels have the provision of working on 120-volt and 240-volt. Okay, so when you are taking this panel, when you are taking the power supply from the building electrical power, from the building DB, distribution board, it ensures that the system is running normally. Okay, that is about the primary power supply, or you can call it as a main power. The second one is the secondary power. Okay, this we call it as a backup power. So the secondary power is coming from the batteries. Okay, so inside the panel, there is a provision to install batteries, which is under the panel, on the bottom of the FACP panel. Okay, now most of the panels, in all the panels, there is a maximum capacity which can be installed. Maximum capacity of the batteries that can be installed depending on the size of the panel. Now, in case if the size exceeds the prescribed size as per the manufacturer data sheet, then what we have to do is we need to provide a separate battery cabinet for the larger, in order to accommodate the larger batteries. Okay, so we have a separate cabinet. It's called as a battery cabinet. Okay, that will be located underneath the panel, underneath the fire alarm control panel. Okay, so it was just for information. So normally the batteries which we are installing inside the panel, we normally install it as a sealed lead acid batteries. Okay, it is sealed lead acid batteries that we install inside the panel. So how is the operation of this one? So as I said before, the panel, the actual power is coming from the building distribution board. We are taking from there, that is a 240-volt or 120-volt. Now, in case if there is a power cut, in case if there is a power interruption, okay, so automatically the power transition takes place from the primary power to the secondary power. Okay, so if the primary power fails, then the secondary power will automatically take over and run the panel. Okay, so the batteries will come into action. Okay, and one of the key roles while designing the battery that we all as engineers need to follow while designing battery is that the batteries must keep the system running for 24 hours in standby, plus it has to run for 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes, to notify for the alarm sounding. Okay, because whenever you do the testing commissioning, okay, the consultants or the inspectors will check the battery test. Okay, so when you're performing the battery test, they will ask you to disconnect the main power supply and run the panel in, what do we say, run the panel in the standby mode. Okay, so it's like you're running the panel only on batteries. Okay, so for 24 hours you will run it on batteries, you will check the voltage levels, and then after completing the entire day, the inspector will ask you to run the panel for at least 5 minutes. Okay, so that time, by 5 minutes means in the alarm condition, so you will have to activate one device, and the panel will keep on running for will keep on sounding the alarm for continuous 5 minutes. So this is to see whether the battery voltages, there's any much what we say voltage fluctuation between the batteries. So that's why we are following this rule while designing the battery calculation. Okay, now comes the annunciator, which is the user interface. So in the panel you have we discussed that there is a cabinet and then we have a door, right? So if you see, without opening it, in the front portion of the panel we have a user interface. It's like a keypad. Okay, so that portion we call it as an annunciator. So it's normally, so to say it in simple terms, it is basically the front display of the panel. Okay, so if a common man, okay, or if a security person looks at the panel, that looks at the annunciator will tell you the current status using lights. Now we call these lights as light emitting diodes, which is the LEDs. Okay, and then if it is an addressable system, it will have a text as well. Okay, so we will go through some of the examples, some of the what do we say some of the meaning what these LEDs indicate. So here, this is a table. So in this table, you are having 3 columns. That is LED color, meaning, and then what it indicates. Okay. So the green color, green LED, it shows that the panel is powered up or it is in normal condition. Okay. It indicates that everything is okay and system is running on AC power. Okay. That is what the green light shows. The red light, the red LED shows that the system is in alarm state. Okay, so someone must have pulled a pull station, or someone must have activated a smoke detector. Okay, because of that, the panel is in alarm state. Then we have the yellow LED. So the yellow LED could indicate a trouble signal. So this means that somewhere in the circuit or somewhere in the system there is a fault. Okay, there's a trouble, there's a problem. So we need to rectify. So until and unless the problem is rectified, the LED will keep on glowing. It will be showing the yellow LED. Sometimes the yellow LED is also shown for the supervisory signal as well. For example, in case if the fire alarm is interfaced with other system, like for example the fire alarm system or firefighting system, or if it is a fire suppression system. So in case the sprinkler valve is closed, then you will have the particular LED will blink. Okay, it will glow. Or if the suppression system is impaired, okay, so maybe someone must have done something. Okay, so in that case also the supervisory signal will be, because the supervisory LED, that will also glow. Okay, so these are the common LED indicators which is available in the panel. Now let us discuss about the control buttons which are available for the user inside the panel. So these control buttons are normally accessible, okay, normally operated by either the building owner or by the firefighter. Okay, so the first one is the acknowledge. Okay, acknowledges when the panel, when there is an internal sounder. Now the panel has an internal sounder. If the internal sounder keeps on buzzing, okay, if it makes a sound or beep sound, then the user can press this acknowledge button to silence that panel. Okay, or if there is an alarm in the building, okay, then the panel will indicate that then the panel will show the panel will actually show the message saying that the panel is in alarm. So the user, whoever is there near the panel, they will acknowledge. So this acknowledge is basically that you are telling the panel that yes, I have seen the message. So that is what the acknowledge button means. Now comes the signal silence. So the signal silence, that is the silence button, it actually silences the horns and the strobes. Okay, so whatever notification appliances are there, it will actually silence them while the problem is being investigated. Okay, it does not fix the problem. Okay, that is very important. So silence basically means to silence the notification appliances. It does not mean that the problem is fixed. Okay, I think maybe in the there will be some spelling mistakes. You kindly ignore them. So what I mean by silence button is that whenever you are pressing that button, the notification appliances will be silent. Okay, in case if it is an alarm condition, it will be turned on silent. It will be kept in silent mode, and during that silence condition, the problem will be investigated. Okay, that is silence button. Then comes the system reset. So Mm, so system reset is basically you are making the system go back to normal. Okay, that is called as the reset button, the system reset button. So if you are having a problem, if there is an alarm condition or if there is a fault condition, so if you have rectified the cause of the alarm or the fault, and once rectified, then you go back to the panel and then you reset the system. This is what this reset button is for. Now, suppose that if the detector is dirty or the pull station is still kept on activated mode, that is, if the pull station is not reset, then the alarm will come back again immediately. So it is necessary that the fault or the alarm origin is rectified. Then we can make sure that the panel is kept normal. Then we have the lamp test button. So the lamp test button is to ensure that all the LEDs on the panel are working properly. Okay, that is what the lamp test button is for. Okay, so when you press the lamp test, then all the LEDs will start working in a sequential manner, which is based on which is the standard for all the brands. Okay, so that is the lamp test button. So you have four buttons. One is the acknowledge button, the silence button, the reset button, then we have the lamp test button. Okay. Now let us have a quick preview of what signals are there in the fire alarm control panel. So what we will do is we will actually have a quick preview of these signals, because in one of the upcoming videos, we will be discussing these signals in detail. Okay, so here if you see, you are having a small table. In that I have described the signal type. Then we have what the signal means. Then we have an example, like like how does that signal occur. So in the signal type, the first one is the alarm signal. So the alarm signal means it's an emergency situation. That means it's an immediate danger. Okay, because of that, there's an alarm. Okay, so example could be someone has activated a smoke or heat detector, or someone has pulled a manual pull station, as mentioned over here. The second example is the trouble signal. So a trouble signal is basically a technical fault. That means the system is impaired. It could be in the circuit, it could be in the devices. Okay, so such situations indicate the trouble signal. So the example mentioned over here is that there could be a short circuit, or there could be a break in the circuit, or sometimes the battery is dead. So that is what trouble signal is all about. The third signal is the supervisory. The supervisory means a related system. Like I said before, maybe the kitchen with suppression system might have activated, okay, or the fire supply system might have been impaired, or the what do we say, the sprinkler system might have, the valve has been opened, okay, or sorry, valve has been closed. So because of that, the panel must have received the supervisory signal. So to summarize, we have three signals. The first one is the alarm, then we have the trouble, then we have the supervisory signals. Okay, so these are the three common signals for the fire alarm control panel. Now let's go for the next slide. So where do we place the fire alarm control panel? So we, not to place the fire alarm control panel, we follow the code. Okay, so normally we follow the NFPA 72 code, that is a standard code, along with the local regulations. Okay, based on the region wherever you are. Okay, so there are three common locations where you normally keep the panel based on the codes. So the first one is near the main entrance. Okay, so usually we keep the panel near the main entrance, main door, so that the firefighters who enter the building, they can see the fire alarm control panel. Okay, that is one area, main entrance. The second area is beside the remote annunciator panel. Now, what is remote annunciator panel? The remote annunciator panel, also called as mimic panel, is actually a graphical representation of the building. Okay, so if a particular room of the building is activated, if there's a fire inside that building, then in the mimic panel, in that particular location, the LED of the particular location will glow red. Okay, so it's like a drawing. It's like the building layout with so many LEDs in it. So each LED will be representing the zone. Okay, so if that particular room has a zone, if it is assigned as a zone in the program, in the panel program, and if the fire is activated over there, then that particular zone in the layout will be glowing red. Okay, so normally if you are installing fire alarm control panel, we install beside the mimic panel. Okay, mimic panel or the remote annunciator panel. Okay, so that is the second common location. And the last one is, wherever you install, the panel should be accessible. Okay, it should not be locked, it should be easily reachable. Okay, so normally in many of the modern buildings, we have a dedicated room which is called as the fire command center. Okay, now that fire command center is accessible only for the security guards, okay, or for the building or for the responsible person who is representing the building. So for those people, the fire command center will be there. So whatever I have mentioned is actually the three common locations. First one is near to the main entrance. The second one is near to the remote annunciator panel. And wherever you're installing, it should be easily accessible. Okay, that is how you locate the panel. Now, panels can come in various sizes based on the zones. Okay, so you have small zones by small panels. So small panels comprise of 1 to 2 zones. So these panels will be installed in small buildings like cafes or small offices. So it's usually a small red box. It's just a box, the normal conventional panels. Then we have medium panels. That is, the number of zones in those panels will be more. So these panels will be installed in medium buildings such as schools, small hotels, malls, etc. Then we have the large panels. So these panels will be having so many zones. Okay, we can actually program them, and these are normally used in high-rise buildings, in hospitals, in airports, etc. Okay, so these are the huge cabinets with multiple circuit boards inside. Okay, so we have small panels, we have medium panels, then we have large panels. So we have reached the last slide, which is a summary slide. So we will just list out the main points that we have discussed. So we have discussed that the fire alarm control panel is considered to be the brain of the system, or we will call it as the command center of the system. It has two power supplies, the primary AC and primary power supply, and then we have the secondary battery backup power supply. Then we have the annunciator. We have discussed about that, the annunciator. in the Annunciator, there are 3 LEDs. We have the green LED, which is for the normal, which is to show the normal status. Then we have the red LED, which is for showing the alarm status. Then we have the yellow LED, which is to show the trouble or the supervisory status. Then we have the control buttons. We have discussed that. So we have normally 4 control buttons. One is the acknowledge. Then we have the silence. Then we have the reset. And we have the lamp test button. Then we have discussed about the location of the control panel. So normally whenever we install, we ensure that we install it near to the main entrance or in an area where the firefighters can access. Okay, like what we have discussed. Normally, the fire alarm control panels is kept inside a room called fire command center. Okay, so we have reached the end of the episode, which is about the fire alarm control panel. So if you have any concerns, if you have any feedback, kindly post them in the comment section of this below, in the chat box below. And the next topic that we are going to discuss is going to be the initiating devices. Okay, so initiating devices, you have several devices. So we are going to start off with the manual pull station. This is the device where we directly pull, which is fixed on the wall, and we pull it. So we will be discussing in detail, okay, about the manual pull stations in the next upcoming episode. So before I sign out, I would request all of you humbly, it's a humble request to kindly like, share, and subscribe in order to learn more, okay, about fire alarm systems. In the future, I'll be posting about other areas as well, other areas of fire alarm system, other areas of fire protection system, and also about electrical engineering as well. So stay tuned and be a follower. So with that, I sign off. Thank you for being a wonderful audience, and goodbye.